Let's go Dolphins! While many celebrate 3 straight wins and a possible playoff spot, the reality is much darker than it seems. Injured players, million-dollar bets that didn't pay off, a quarterback questioned even by the coaching staff, and an offensive line that looks like a house of cards about to collapse. What if I told you that, even winning all the remaining games, the chances of qualifying are still minimal? And worse, the season's big investment may already be considered a mistake. The atmosphere is heating up in Miami, and you need to know what's really going on. But before continuing, like this post if you're a true Dolphins fan and believe we can still turn things around. And comment, "Go Dolphins! We can reach the Super Bowl." I want to see who still believes in this team, even with all this happening. Now get ready, because what comes next will completely change your perspective on what's happening in Miami. Let's get straight to the point. The Miami Dolphins are coming off a 3-game winning streak against the Saints, Commanders, and Bills, and 4 wins in their last 5 games. But don't be fooled by this good run on the scoreboard. The reality on the field, especially when we talk about the offensive line and Tua Tagovailoa's performance, is far from cause for celebration. And if you still believe we're ready to compete on equal footing with the NFL's top teams in January, perhaps it's time to rethink. Starting with the offensive line, the promise of a season of improvement has turned into frustration. The investment was heavy. James Daniels, brought in on a 3-year, $24 million contract, played only 4 snaps before being injured in week 1 and is practically ruled out for the rest of the year. This isn't an isolated case of bad luck. Andrew Meyer and Jason Sanders also remain on the inactive list, with Mcdaniel asking for patience, which, to many, sounds like resignation. While Daniels' injury might seem like an isolated problem, the overall picture is even worse. Jonas Saviania, whom the Dolphins drafted up in the 2nd round as an immediate offensive line solution, has been a near-complete disappointment. His mental lapses in pressure reading and positioning are proving costly. In the game against the Saints, one play in particular stood out, an obvious blitz by the linebacker that he simply ignored, resulting in direct pressure on the quarterback. And that, fans, isn't something you fix with physical training. It's game reading, it's understanding the scheme. On the other hand, Patrick Paul and Aaron Brewer are the only names that truly remain reliable pillars of the offensive line. Austin Jackson, who recently returned, has even shown improvement. Mcdaniel even said he exceeded expectations in the last game, and indeed his PFF scores were all in the 60s, with good performance in run blocking and pass protection. But is that enough to trust this line? Looking ahead to 2026, it seems unlikely that Jonah, Daniels, or even Jackson will be consistent starters. The investment made seems to have been wasted, and the coaching staff is already starting to see this differently. And if the protection is shaky, what about the one who should be leading this offense? Tua Tagovailoa is in his first season under his new 4-year contract, and his performance has been disappointing from start to finish. Against the Saints, in a rainy game, he completed just over 50% of his passes, threw an interception, had 3 turnover plays, and could easily have come away with 2 or 3 picks if the opposing defense had been more efficient. Mcdaniel, even trying to maintain a diplomatic tone, admitted that Tua didn't have a good game. He could have thrown to Waller, it was a catchable ball for a chain, and Hill had a drop, but it was herky-jerky in the passing game, he said, and this has been a pattern. It's not just about the rain in New Orleans. Tua threw critical interceptions against the Colts, Patriots, and Bills. And while the win against Buffalo was convincing, it came thanks to the running game and defense, not our quarterback's performance. The truth is, Miami only beat teams that are among the worst in the NFL, the Jets, Saints, Falcons, and Commanders. All opponents outside the top 20. The only truly strong opponent we beat was the Bills, and even then, without a great performance from Tua. This raises an important question. Is this team ready to face heavyweights in January? Because if it depends on our quarterback's performance and the protection he has, the answer seems to be no. Because, honestly, that question is the big elephant in the room in Miami. The franchise made a bold move by giving Tua Tagovailoa a 4-year contract right at the start of the season, a long-term financial commitment for a player who hasn't yet proven consistent enough when it matters most. And it's not just about statistics, it's about game reading, decision-making under pressure, and the ability to carry the team on his shoulders when the game plan isn't working. So far, Tua has failed in those moments. And what's most worrying? The feeling that Tua's ceiling has already been reached. He's efficient when everything is working perfectly, when the line protects him well, the running game is in place, and the receivers are open. But how often does that happen in the playoffs? Against physical defenses, adjusted schemes, and opponents who know his weaknesses, a quarterback needs to be the difference, and Tua, so far, has been part of the problem, not the solution. Mike McDaniel knows this. Despite the diplomatic words and press conferences, the tone of his statement shows discomfort. He acknowledges that the passing attack is inconsistent, that Tua's decisions are questionable, and that some plays have to go back in time and redo. This comes the absence of an offensive coach, a guru of the system, is symptomatic. It's no exaggeration to think that Mcdaniel is starting to question whether Tua is, in fact, the ideal quarterback to lead this project to the Super Bowl. And while this dilemma unfolds on offense, the defense and the running game have been saving Miami game after game. The performance against the Saints was further proof of this. Without great performances from Tua, the team found ways to win with strategy, defensive consistency, and the running game. But the inevitable question is, for how long? How long can the Miami Dolphins rely on these areas to mask the inefficiency in their offensive leadership? Returning to the offensive line, another critical point is the lack of depth. With Alec Ingold listed as day-to-day after leaving with an injury in the last game, the absence of a fullback like him, who is vital both in the running game and in play-action plays, can be strongly felt. And although Miami has alternatives like Julian Hill or even Daniel Brunskill in specific packages, it's not the same thing. The loss of Ingold at a crucial point in the season could further destabilize an already faltering offense. It's also important to note that the Dolphins continue to rely on the 6-OL formation with Brunskill, which has worked at specific moments, but cannot be the basis of a sustainable offensive system. When a team frequently needs to bring in a sixth lineman to handle pressure, that alone reveals the fragility of the offensive line. And if the offseason idea was to improve this area, the reality is that it failed miserably, whether due to injury, below-par performance, or questionable draft picks. And speaking of questionable picks, what about Jonas Savienia? Fans expected a ready-made player with immediate impact. Instead, they saw an athlete lost on the field for the first 9 weeks, with serious mental errors. Although he has improved in the last 3 weeks, there is still much room for improvement. And in the meantime, the team continues to improvise and wait for a miracle of development that may never come. Given this scenario, Miami Dolphins fans need to face the harsh reality. Is the team winning? Yes, but they're winning against weak opponents, with an inconsistent quarterback and an offensive line hanging by a thread. The schedule has been momentarily favorable, but that doesn't guarantee anything. And in the end, the games that really count against elite teams are the ones where these problems will appear in full force. Now is the moment of truth for the franchise. The front office, even without Chris Greer, will have to make crucial decisions. Continue with Tua and believe he can turn things around? Bet once again on an offensive line full of question marks? Or finally take a bolder approach, perhaps even seeking a new quarterback who better fits McDaniel's philosophy and brings the necessary confidence to compete with the big teams? And you, the fan, do you think the Miami Dolphins should continue betting on Tua Tagovailoa in 2026 and beyond? Leave your comment below and let's discuss this together. If you enjoyed this content, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. More videos are appearing on screen now so you can stay up to date on everything happening in the aquatic and orange world. Until next time, go Dolphins!